Hello, everybody, and welcome to Invision with Dee Carroll. I'm Dee Carroll, and after a little spring hiatus, I'm excited to be back with a great new episode. We've tweaked our format a little bit for you guys to give you less of me and more of the good stuff. Today, I'm speaking with Evan Engel on all the things you need to know about marketing a modern-day eye care practice. And Evan really knows his stuff. He is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Eye Care Pro, an optometric practice and eye care business digital marketing firm. So now, let's get to that good stuff.
Invision with Dee Carroll is brought to you by Invision's Brain Squad. The Brain Squad is an amazing group of eye care professionals who answer short surveys from Invision each month. Members are owners, are top managers of their businesses, and their opinions and insights provide the spine of each issue of Invision. Over the years, we've had so many Brain Squad members tell us how much they value being a member of the group. They love seeing their name printed in the magazine, and they love the free Brain Squad t-shirts they get for signing up as a member. But most of all, they love the inspiration and ideas they get from filling out our surveys each month and sharing brainstorms with fellow squad members. Are you an owner or top manager and ready to join the squad? Go to envisionmag.com/brain squad and sign up today. You and your brain will be glad you did. Now, on to this month's featured interview.
Real quick, let's just talk a little bit about who you are, a little bit of your history, and then we can get into what Eye Care Pro is and what they do and what you do there.
Okay. So I'm a father. I have three boys, and I live in Jerusalem, Israel. But I grew up in Chicago. I joined the U.S. Army. My senior year in high school was 9/11, and I came home, said to my parents joining the Army. And so I spent a few years in the Army, and then I went to study at SUNY Binghamton. Afterwards, I went to Israel to study. I met my wife, and I've been here ever since.
So let's talk a little bit about what Eye Care Pro does.
So Eye Care Pro has been around for almost 14 years, and we have been very focused only on optometry marketing. Our whole model or our whole approach to optometry marketing is that the more you understand about the thing you're marketing, the better of a job you can do. And we gear our marketing to things that can be measurable so that we can provide solid information to our practices about the benefit of marketing and also give them a clear sense of return on investment. So we have different marketing packages that start off from as little as just having a website to as much as really active work on all aspects of marketing a practice.
Okay, so listeners, if you haven't already caught the gist of today's topic, it is marketing and eye care practice. And so as Evan, part of that, what is your role there as Vice President of Sales and Marketing entail?
So it's interesting. I think that before we start about what I do right now, I think it's important to give me a little background on what I did do. So for 2 years, I worked just managing marketing for practices. So it gives me like a really strong background of what works for practices, what doesn't, having talked to practices all day long, every day. That was my focus, was how to market and grow a practice. But recently I moved into this sales and marketing, which is focused on basically talking to practices that are interested, groups that are interested in working with Eye Care Pro, and just explaining what we do and how we can help them.
Okay. So then we're going to be talking about marketing. So let's get right to basics. First, let's define marketing for the purposes of our conversation. What is it? What does it entail? How is it different from advertising?
Okay, so just in general, the term marketing refers to any activity that you're doing to try to grow revenue. That can be anything from the pricing of a product to a promotion that you're running, to working on your Google reviews, to your social media strategy, to having an event. Marketing is a very broad umbrella of any activity that you're doing with the goal of growing revenue for your business.
So advertising is just one activity that falls under that total marketing umbrella. Yep. They're not the same thing. Okay.
Exactly.
Or if you wanted to do it in some sort of calculus equation or whatever, is marketing, advertising equals marketing, but marketing does not equal advertising.
Right, exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay.
It's important to realize that marketing is not just the thing that you hire a company for too. There's many elements of marketing that are going to take place just in the practice. The way you handle a call is part of your marketing strategy. The way you brand your practice, and everything about your practice that's doing it for the intention of growing your revenue and building a stronger business is going to be a marketing endeavor.
So just unlocking the door and turning on the light in the morning could be looked at as marketing.
Yeah, if you do it earlier because you're thinking this is going to be a way for me to grow my potential for growing my business by having better hours. So then opening your door an hour earlier would be a marketing effort.
Okay. And so you talked a little bit about what it is that iCare does, but talk a little bit about where you and how you collect data and analytics. Talk a little bit about how you guys go about doing that.
So for us and our whole like strategic approach to marketing, it's all about data. And we want to get data from as many sources as possible. So everything, obviously, you're going to look at like your Google Analytics to see where people are coming to your website from, what they're doing when they're on the website, what pages they're looking at, what pages are performing well. That kind of feedback gives you an understanding of what's working and what's not working. And when you compound that over 1,700 practices that we work with, we have a pretty good idea, and we're on the pulse of what is going to provide growth for a practice and what's not. But we also do data, and we expand it beyond just your website. So things like call tracking and call recording to really understand what's going on the calls, what areas of improvement you can make there, social media tracking, Google listing tracking, and even as an example, a lot of practices will run print ads. And if you use a call tracking number, that's another way to measure. So pretty much anything that you can do to measure any online effort that you're doing, from paid ads to your website to social media, you just want to make sure that you have a good idea, because that will be the basis for you to understand what is providing the most impact and the most measurable growth and what's not necessarily worth your time and effort, which I think is a big challenge when you're talking to practices on a day-to-day basis. Is everyone has all these ideas that they've heard around that they say, oh, I should be doing Instagram or I should be doing Pinterest. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but when you take a data-driven approach, you have to analyze what's the best usage of your time and resources. Time is probably harder than financial resources to manage, and just know that this is going to provide measurable growth, and the best measurable growth for my time and energy.
Now, you mentioned the 1,700 iCare practices that are clients of iCare Pro, and how you do this for each one of those clients. So you can obviously do this on a micro level, meaning you can go into an individual practice's website and give them reports on the traffic coming to them, and what's working for them and what's not working for them specifically. But because of the broad size of the iCare practices that you do this for, the 1,700, you can actually kind of extrapolate out some macro data about sort of best practices and what works in a general sense. So for our readers and our podcast listeners who are most likely small independent iCare businesses, which are many of the clients you work with, who have limited time and budgets, they're looking for the biggest bang for their buck. So they're looking for measurable impact that requires minimal time and money. That isn't everybody. But so what are the top three things you guys have found, be that, vehicles for marketing, the sorts of messages you're sharing, the tools you're using, that they should be focusing on to market their business?
So first of all, I like that question. That's the language I speak, right? What is the most important things? Get that done first, and then you work on the next thing. It is going to depend a lot on the particular situation of a practice and their strategy for growth. So not every practice is going to grow in the same way. The practice does vision therapy and ortho K, and that's kind of their growth strategy. Is going to have like a couple of different best practices than a general care practice. For the sake of this conversation, I think I'm going to just stick with more of a general care practice approach.
Sure.
And so the first and foremost, most important thing that any practice could ever do is to work on their Google listing. Your Google listing is, if you go to Google and you search eye doctor near me, eye exam in your city, whatever it is, it will usually show up with a map at the top and three practices underneath, and it'll show your reviews. You can expand it out to see more information. The reason why that's the most important is because across our practices, around 70% of your traffic will be generated from Google. And give some kind of comparison, Yelp might account for 1%, Facebook might account for 1%. People, when they're looking for general care for eye exams, they're not doing that on Facebook. They're not doing that on Instagram. They're doing it on Google. And so definitely, if you're going to spend time and effort on one thing, it's your Google listing. And Google listing is multiple activities, but there are really pretty much two main activities. One is to make sure you don't have duplicate listings, and two, that you get tons and tons of good 5-star reviews on a regular basis and you reply to them. As long as you do those two things, you've maximized your Google listing.
Now, you're talking about focusing on your Google listing when you're in the patient customer acquisition phase of practice growth. You want more people through your door.
Correct. So Eye Care Pro focuses our attention within marketing. Like we said before, there are different activities. So our niche within marketing is new patient marketing. And while we do work with our practices to help them on marketing that's to their existing patients, there are other companies and tools that would be like more situated in that space.
So, I mean, I think that's a really valuable distinction. So for the focus of this call, we're mostly going to be talking about marketing for new patient acquisition, which I mean, I would have to imagine the majority of the listeners out there are interested in.
I would hope so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that there are some very nice boutique businesses out there that are like, I got all the customers that I need. Thanks. But for our intents and purposes, we're talking about getting new faces through your door and into your exam chair or dispensary table. Okay.
Right.
So your Google listing, number one.
That's number one.
And what does that entail? In Yelp you can claim your business. Can you do that in Google as well?
Sure, you can claim your listing. You can, but assuming most practices have already claimed their listing, I think that's pretty much a given in this day and age. Hopefully.
You're assuming most businesses have websites, which would be a faulty assumption.
That's true. So yes, you should definitely claim your listing, but you should also be active on adding information to that listing. And so the easiest way to add information that's going to basically both optimize the listing and what you basically got to put yourself into Google's eyes. What they're looking to show a person who's searching results that's going to give them the best result for what they're looking for. So if somebody goes to Google and they're searching for an eye doctor near me, Google wants to find the best eye doctor near them. And so Google reviews are just going to be the way that Google says, okay, this is a local business. I trust them. They're consistently getting 20 new 5-star reviews a month. They have 150 5-star reviews. Obviously, people locally like them. And so that's the most important way of working on your Google listing for sure. And then obviously when somebody does see you and they see all these amazing reviews, that's going to help convert that person to a patient. But you also want to make sure you don't have a duplicate listing. So a lot of practices will have other names of the practice that are showing up as Google listings. And those are things that any marketing company can help you with. And there's ways to do it on your own. We have a good blog on our website about how to get rid of duplicate listings on your own. But that's like priority number one.
So that happens a lot, I'm assuming, when you have a doctor who is listed by both his name and his business name. That happens a lot.
The exception is the doctor listing. So a doctor listing is not considered a duplicate listing, but a lot of times practices will have like two listings, one that was started by somebody else or one under a different practice name. Let's say they changed their name or something like that. And so that would be what we're talking about.
All right. So clean up your Google listing.
That's definitely claim it.
Claim it and clean it up. Okay.
Right. And there are other activities you can take on your Google listing. You can do posts. They expire in a week. But like, part of your social media strategy, you can add images, you can add videos. But the most
So you can
important
add
thing,
like promotions and stuff like, hey, we're having a sale for the next week, and that'll show up in your Google listing for anybody who searches
exactly,
you.
exactly.
Okay.
And to put it into perspective, a practice's Google listing will be seen somewhere around 3 to 10,000 times, depending on the size of their population and their online presence. Um,
Mhm.
and so and around 80% of those people will be looking for non-branded terms. So a branded term would be if I look for a practice name or a doctor's name. A non-branded term if I was searching for a general term like eye doctor near me or something like that.
Okay. And so when you claim your Google listing and you get in there, can you specify the geographic range and all of that stuff that you'd like to appear in for someone searching you, or is that all Google? Google figures that out.
Yeah, Google figures it out primarily. They'll like associate a city with you.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just want to like list yourself as an optometrist, right? And then yeah, that's basically.
So Google listing is number one. Now, to have a Google listing, you just need to be a business. Do you need to have a business website? Is that sort of part and parcel,
You
or are they
you
two separate
you don't need to
things?
have a business website. You just need to have a local address. They'll send you a postcard with a code so they can verify that you exist in that physical location. And then you own the listing and you can make any changes and updates. You can work on
I think
reviews
that
before you
okay.
have the listing owned, but that's it's a pretty easy process to own your listing.
Okay, I think that's a huge distinction that we need to make sure is clear that even if you are a business who does not have a website for whatever reason, hopefully one day you do, but if you are a business who does not have a website, you still have a Google listing that you can claim and be active on that'll increase the chances of people finding you.
Correct. 100%.
Fantastic. Okay. So that's tool number one. What's the next thing?
Okay. So the next thing would be your website. Um, and so with your website, what you want to do is basically make sure that you're um, showing, first of all, you want to build the overall authority and strength of your website, because that's another thing Google's going to look at when they're deciding who to show up at the top. So the city that you're targeting, the content that you have, updates to your site, mobile friendliness, the speed of your site, just to overall have a website that Google likes, as
Mm-hmm.
well as, so that would be like the next thing. And then um, within website, then there's also using written word and content to leverage your site to show up for more topics, for more cities. So for example, this is an example I use all the time, but if you're the only practice within even not only your city, but even the cities around you that has a page on pink eye, scratched eye, something stuck in your eye, chemical spill, sty, those pages are all good. Someone scratches their eye, the first thing they do is go to Google. If you have a page and everyone else doesn't have a page about it, you'll show up and you'll get that patient. So that same approach would apply to whether you're focused on specialties, whether you're focused on your optical, whether you're focused on general care. That content is a tool that builds overall authority and helps you pick up different kinds of searches.
Okay, now I think when people hear the word content now,
Mm-hmm.
they think, "Oh God, you mean I need to have a blog? A blog is a lot of work. It's too much." When you say content, how simple does that have to be on your website, or can it be on your website? Obviously, you can have a blog if you have the time, but in order to kind of hit those notes with Google, um, what is the minimum amount of work you can put into your website?
So that's going to partially depend on your strategy and stuff like that, and also the market you're located in. So what you got to look at it is like, if I have a page about diabetic eye exam, and I'm in a city of 20,000 people, and I have three other practices that I'm competing against, and let's say there's a neighboring city of 20,000 people as well, and there's a few practices there. I don't really need to have so much content on diabetic eye exams for Google to say that I'm the best. I just need to have better than everybody else around me. As soon as you expand that market, or if you're in Midtown Manhattan, you now need to have better content, richer, more in-depth content that's on that topic to be the one that shows up at the top. And so that the content and the level of effort is going to depend a little bit on the topic that you're talking about, as well as the market that the space that you're competing in. But another side aspect of that is that Google looks for freshness, meaning content isn't just one time I wrote a bunch of stuff, I put it up on my website, but you're really looking to have a consistent schedule of adding content. If you can do it once a week, that's fantastic. If you can do it once a month, less fantastic, but still better than once a year.
Now, let me ask, a lot of these website plugins now have, your Facebook newsfeed plugin and your Instagram plugin and your Twitter plugin. Does that count as new content on your site when it's appearing on your website?
That does not, and that's a great question.
It does not.
And it's
I think a lot of people now believe it does.
It does. It does not, and not only does it not count as content, but it slows your site down. So, if anything, I recommend my practices to not use those things. They add very limited value, and then you definitely want your site to be zippy. 50% or more of the traffic coming to your website is on a cell phone, and if it doesn't load up in a few seconds, you're already starting at a big disadvantage. So the kind of content that we're looking for, I prefer, instead of focusing on blogs, I prefer focusing on topics and having the best page in your market on a specific topic, and using each topic as a way to grow a specific part of your business. And if it's lens coatings and talking about transition lenses and talking about, your lens lab, that's great. And if it's medical stuff, that's fantastic. It really, it's about having the best page on a specific topic to leverage that page to generate specific kinds of patients.
We'll be back in just a moment with more of the Invision podcast with Dee Carroll. But first, a message from our sponsor. Invision with Dee Carroll is brought to you by Invision's Brain Squad. The Brain Squad is an amazing group of eye care professionals who answer short surveys from Invision each month. Members are owners, are top managers of their businesses, and their opinions and insights provide the spine of each issue of Invision. Over the years, we've had so many Brain Squad members tell us how much they value being a member of the group. They love seeing their name printed in the magazine, and they love the free Brain Squad t-shirts they get for signing up as a member. But most of all, they love the inspiration and ideas they get from filling out our surveys each month and sharing brainstorms with fellow squad members. Are you an owner or top manager and ready to join the squad? Go to envisionmag.com/brain squad and sign up today. You and your brain will be glad you did. Now we return to the Invision podcast with Dee Carroll.
Okay, so we have our three tools. We have claiming and becoming active in your Google listing. We have having a website. And then sort of thirdly, we have making sure it's robust with fresh content posted regularly. Those are the main three things that you suggest any eye care business be doing to acquire new patients, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And I think I hear this all the time where practices ask me about social media. And I have some practices that are just amazing at it. And that still accounts for 3% of their traffic. So while social media is great and nobody is saying that that's not a worthwhile endeavor, it comes after you've kind of hit the basic three things that will really elevate your results the most effectively.
Okay.
And then looking for additional things, there's always more that you can do to market a practice.
Okay, so let's get into a little bit more of the sciencey stuff. There are a lot of, and this is something that, is a hot button topic now, data. And there's a lot of important data and analytics and KPIs that business